Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Lemon Live at 5, the weekend edition. This is going to be a show that I know everyone is going to have a lot of comments about, and you're going to want to engage in the chat. So welcome to Lemon Live at 5. The woman you see on your screen right there is Pam, or Pamela Hemphill. She is known as, or was known as, the MAGA Granny. Now she is the ex-MAGA Granny. Pamela, welcome to the show. Good to have you.
Oh, well, thank you for inviting me. What an honor.
Oh, thank you. It's an honor to have you. Okay, so listen, you were a MAGA Granny. You know, Donald Trump pardoned all of the January 6th folks who took part in the storm of the Capitol, or the raid of the Capitol, and you refused his pardon. You won't accept it. Tell our audience why.
Well, you would think everybody would know, but of course, it would be a slap in the face to the Capitol police officers, to the rule of law, to our country. Look, I pleaded guilty because I was guilty. Why would I want a pardon if I said I was guilty? They're trying to rewrite history, and I would be a part of their history, which is all lies, saying, yeah, I'll take this pardon because the DOJ was weaponized against everybody, right? Which we know is not true. DOJ is not weaponized against Pam Hemphill. I pleaded guilty because I was guilty, period. It's that simple.
Who's trying to rewrite history, Pam?
The J6 defendants, first Trump, the J6 defendants, all their family members, all their enablers, all of them, even the Republican Party, trying to gaslight us, put it behind us, let's stop talking about it. And I've been screaming out for a year and a half, trying to bring evidence that every lie they put out there, every single one, has been debunked. And I've got a lot of that information from the sedition hunters, serious researchers, and some Democrat people that I've become friends with. And once I realized, personally, when I discovered a lie, oh my God, this has to stop. This narrative has to stop.
How did you get caught up into this? Were you you were a Republican, right? Or you still are a Republican?
No, I voted for Harris. I'm now a Democrat.
But you were a Republican. How did you become a member of the MAGA movement, Pam?
Well, it's kind of a long story. I retired in 2011 as an alcohol and drug counselor, and I never was involved in any politics. Then I became a volunteer as a TV show host on a community program as a volunteer, trying to help heroin addicts in our community. Someone had heard about me doing that, called me out. It was the Mega Girls, and asked if I would come and interview people around them and interview what they're doing. So I said, yes, I would love that. I was bored, when you're retired, something to do. And I started going to all the events. And then I heard about Ammon Bundy. I don't know if you know about that one, but I started following him because he carries a Bible, and they're all telling you that the Democrats want to turn this into a communist country. And here I am, not involved in politics, not doing my own research, listening to all their gaslighting, because if you do ask them anything, they'll stop you right there. Don't listen to the Democrats. They've been trying to steal the elections forever. And you're not doing your own research, and I always regret that.
Ammon Bundy is a militant. He's like a member of a militia, and he had been. There was at the National Refuge in Oregon. There was a standoff with Ammon Bundy, and so you got involved with him, and then you started listening to. Was it kind of like QAnon? Did you start just listening to conspiracy theories?
No, the QAnon I always thought was kind of what's wrong.
No, but I mean, you started to buy into the rhetoric, though, right?
Oh yeah. Because they carry a Bible and they interpret the Constitution the way they want it interpreted. It's not the Constitution. But you don't know that. You're not schooled. You're not educated in that area. And you're just listening to people with 2 PhDs. I'm friends with the lieutenant governor here in Boise, Idaho. Why would you think they're lying to you or making things up?
Yeah. Do you think that they make things up on purpose, or do you think they're actually just ignorant about it? If someone has a PhD, you would think that they're fairly intelligent, but do you think they're making it up, or are they lying, or a combination?
No, they just have their own interpretation. They believe it. I can't speak for them, but when you do your research, you find out what they're telling you is not true.
Yeah. And so you got involved, you became MAGA because you were the MAGA granny. And then how do you become, did you actually, how did you end up to believe that the election was stolen? And I think that you probably did believe the election was stolen because you ended up at the Capitol, right? So how did you come to believe that? Was it because of what Donald Trump said or what?
Well, yeah, everybody around you is trying to convince you. Because I, every time I would go to them and say, well, "Where's the evidence? I mean, where's the article? Who can I listen to? I want to know more about this." And of course, Giuliani and all the other people around him are saying the election's stolen. So you're not going to really question these people because they're not going to lie to you. President's not lying to you. I'm 71 years old, so I come from a different generation where you would never dream a president was a dangerous narcissist cult leader, you know? Um, so,
That's interesting to hear someone who's a former member of MAGA to say a dangerous cult leader. Do you believe you were in a cult?
absolutely. You know, and I've read the book, The Dangerous Case of Donald Trump, with 37 psychiatrists trying to warn us how dangerous he really is. And I've been reading a lot of books. And yeah, it's very scary. This man cares about nobody. If you know anything about a narcissist, oh, they're a nightmare. And they use all the gaslighting, the love bombing. Uh, they make your mind crazy, you know, because he'll say one thing and then he changes it later. They're very evil. They're very mean people, and it's all about them. It's all about Trump.
Pam, members of the MAGA movement really get offended when you tell them that they are members of a cult. They don't like it very much. They'll call you names and all kinds of things.
I know. I don't care because you are in a cult. I read the book with Stephen Hansen and was on his show, learned a lot more about cults, and he fits it 100%. They fit all the tactics they use and everything when you research what a cult is, it's a cult. You can't deny that. It's like saying, well, I'm not a diabetic, but your what is it? AI, your score is real high. Yeah, you're a diabetic. Yeah, you're in a cult. I don't mean to say it to be mean, but you need to label it for what it is. You don't sugarcoat that because that's what it is. It's a cult.
With that cult-like behavior, there are other behaviors that are associated with MAGA, the cult-like thing. And if you look at, what the tenets, right, of being a cult, I mean, the MAGA movement really encapsulates most of those things, right? You only need a couple, three to be a member of a cult, but I think it's like 10 things that let you know when you're in a cult, and the MAGA movement is almost all of them. But also there is some really terrible behavior, the way that they speak about women sometimes, the way that they minorities. Do you think that there is a racist and bigoted element of the MAGA movement? Did you see that when you were in it?
No, you don't.
Mm,
I think if I had saw that, I would have been gone real quick because I've been
mhm.
sober now 45 years and my sponsor was a beautiful black lady. So if I saw racism, I would have left. But they hide it. I know now what they do. They'll have one out of 100 around. So you're thinking they're not racist. Oh, yeah, they're racist to the. Oh, God. I believe they want to turn this into an all white Christian nation, period, if they have it their way.
Let me clarify. You said you didn't see it, they hide it, but you think that it's there. They would have, you mean like one black person or one what? What do you mean?
Yeah, maybe one black person would be at an event, and you could see they're not talking to them. They don't bring them in their circles. I would, but yeah, you know the Proud Boys when this little sign, I didn't know what that was. It wasn't until my best friend told me that's white supremacists. I said, it is? Really? They're white supremacists? Because you don't see that. They don't talk about it, and then they'll deny it 100%. But I'm convinced they're white supremacists. I'm convinced they're racist. I don't want anything to do with them.
Do you think that there are many people who are and I don't mean this to, as a pejorative, I don't mean to call you a name, but do you think that there are people who were as naive about the MAGA movement and those aspects as you are, and they were just sort of co-opted?
I mean, for January 6th, I would say yes. I mean, as far as not knowing that any riot was going to happen. But no, I'm seeing now, looking back and talking to some now, no, they were racist then. I didn't catch it because it's not like standing right in your face or saying something terrible about different people. But looking back, I can see it. I don't know.
What did you see?
Regarding,
You said, looking back, I can see it.
oh, just the way they would treat anybody, any people of color. They wouldn't talk to them. They wouldn't bring them, like I said, in their circle. And some of the things they wanted for policies. Now I'm thinking about them, I can't bring the memory back right now. I'm sorry, but I was always wondering about that. It's like they seem to be treated different for looking back.
What do you mean they seem to be treated different?
Shunned.
Really? But
They're
that's not, go on. Sorry. I'm sorry to cut you off.
No, it just took me off the question because I didn't ready. I have to think, try to remember what made me suspicious. And I think it was mainly just watching them be shunned and not brought into circles. Like I'd be invited out to go have lunch with him, and then let's say his name was Tom. I say, Tom, you want to come with us? And they would say, we don't have enough room to bring him. Things like that.
Yeah. Wow. You can't be proud of that.
Oh, no.
What about members of the LGBTQ community?
That was surprising. See, try to understand. In my Alcoholics Anonymous meetings, people of color, LGBT, you name it, all the different people, Republicans, we love each other. I'm used to being around diversity all my life. Nobody was better than another person. We were all equal. And I had those friends. I had LGBT. I had transgender friends. I had my sponsor, beautiful black lady, for 30 years in recovery. It's just the prejudice and the racist wasn't part of how I was been living for 45 years. So when I'm in these groups, like with Trump and the mega cult, I'm just thinking everybody's like me, So I'm not really looking for it. I just believe that Republicans believed in equality and believed in equal rights for everybody. Oh God, now I know. I mean, I was following the wrong party, that's for sure. But again, I wasn't really involved in politics and paying attention. I was just loving being out there and videotaping.
Pam, I want to talk to you more, but we're an interactive show, and I'm seeing the folks who are writing, and there's so many people saying that you are forgiven. We appreciate you. I mean, people are really open to, to accepting you and to forgiving you for what I would imagine they deem bad behavior. But it seems that what's the reception that you've gotten from people? We'll talk about the MAGA movement later, but who are not members of the MAGA movement, maybe Democrats, maybe centrists, maybe folks who are just Republicans and who don't support Donald Trump. Someone says, I respect that Pam is speaking her truth to light, says Sandra Sheriff. What kind of reception have you gotten outside of the MAGA movement?
When I first started pushing back about a year and a half ago, it's very painful, very hard. I understood that you should not be happy to be talking to a January 6th criminal, because that's what I was. And so I had a lot of hate coming towards me, and I got it. I understood that. But I knew in my heart that I had to keep speaking out against their J6 narrative, that it was all lies. I had to keep talking about it because I was a J6er. I was there, and I know they were lying. And so it was difficult because the smear got so bad that they would contact them and docked them and said, if you talk to her anymore, we're not going to talk to you. And people would call me and say, I'm sorry, Pam, I want to support you, but I can't because my life is in danger now. It's like they made it very hard for me to get my message out. They have done everything they can to discredit me, everything you could imagine, even calling my PO a few weeks ago and lying about me. And they thought I wasn't allowed at the Capitol, which I am in Boise. So they wanted to call the PO on that one, but that was good. I hope they did. I mean, they're just
Who,
doing everything to make my life miserable.
you're talking about the folks on the MAGA side now, right? Or is
No,
that
this was the
it's
Democrats.
the Democrats? They're called. Oh, well, well,
Not
that-
all. No, no, not
yeah,
all.
but no one should be doing that now because look, I think that if you can say that I don't want to accept a pardon from this man because I was wrong and I was guilty, then I think folks should forgive you.
Well,
I really do. I don't think that they should be calling anybody on you. I mean, look, that's just me. And the folks in the chat can tell me how they feel about it. But how do you feel about that?
no, not now. This is when I was starting. It's slowly getting better. It's
better
much
now.
better now, much better. I
Good.
mean, night and day now.
Good.
And I would go to Luke Beasley's show and read the comments. It kept me going because I thought, should I keep talking about this? I want to expose the narrative of the January Sixers that they're lying, and do people are okay with me doing this? And yeah, the
Yeah.
comments just they were wonderful, gave me strength to keep going on.
I'm so glad that people are accepting you now. Let's talk about. We're going to get to. Don't worry, streamers, viewers. We're going to get to what happened at the Capitol that day with Pam. And if you're just tuning in, Pam is the ex-MAGA granny who turned down Donald Trump's pardon after he pardoned all those 1,500 people, even the most violent ones, just this week, his first week in office. Pam said, "I don't want it." She said that I was guilty. I pleaded guilty for a reason, and I don't want to insult the officers and others who were at the Capitol fighting to keep the Capitol safe and the folks inside. So let's talk about the MAGA side. How are they treating you now? What's the reception, especially now after you turned down Donald Trump's pardon and you're speaking out about it?
Oh, we got a file on you. We're coming after you. Oh, it's horrifying. It's horrifying. I don't know how else to put it. It's you just watch the comments on my Twitter page, but that's okay. I don't care. This is, when you leave a cult, they're going to come after you with everything they've got. Well, that's all right. Doesn't matter to me. I'm going to continue to do the right thing, share facts, and you want to get upset. Well, that's expected. When somebody's telling the truth and putting a light on your lies, I will continue because they are lies. It's not my opinion that you've been wrong. This is a fact that I've done my research, and researchers have given me facts, and they don't like facts.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, why are they so strident in their ignorance and not wanting to accept reality or facts?
Well, I didn't want to either, to be honest with you. When I started my first J6 space on Twitter, and they were all coming in, all the J6ers, some of them in jail, were talking in there, and their family members. And what had happened, Gateway Pundit put out an article that Ryan Samsel had lost his whole eye in jail. And I thought, that's not okay. Now, since everybody had been calling me, I had his girlfriend's phone number and his lawyer's. So I called to find out, is this true? What, you can't be taking somebody's eye out in jail. No, it wasn't true. Come to find out, he had called somebody the N-word in jail and they beat him up. But that day, the Give, Send, and Go went up to over $40,000. So I brought that information to the Mega, my group, my space, and told them, and they got mad at me. Said, Pam, I don't know who you're talking about. They're all lying. And his girlfriend, don't trust her. They just gaslight you. So I brought another fact about the doors a little bit later. And they yelled at me about that. And
What are the doors? What's the doors fact that you brought to it?
well, I have a little list, a little chart that proving that the doors were not opened by the Capitol Police. They weren't
Well,
opened.
yeah, well, Pam, I've spoken to a lot of people, and one of them stands out to me. I was at the Capitol just before the election, just a couple weeks, or not even a couple weeks. a couple of days before the election, and there were a group of MAGA folks there meeting, and in a Christian group, but they were all MAGA. And I asked the guy, how do you feel standing here on the steps of the Capitol, considering what happened? And he goes, "Oh, all of those people should be let go. They were patriots, and they were ushered in. They welcomed him in, saying the police officers were saying, 'Come on into the Capitol.'" And he didn't believe that there was any chaos or anything. Now I'm going to show you. Let's put up the video, Nikki, of what happened. And I want to know from you, Pam, when you look at this video that's up, why do people in the MAGA group, why do they not see chaos? Why do they see this as ushering or welcoming people in?
Oh. That's the one that gives me the most nightmares. You know what I mean? Look it's called a big gaslighting campaign. We see it. They know, but they have to cover it up. They got to lie and say, "Oh, the officers started it first." No, they did not. On my side, I was there. They were holding the line. There were gates, little barriers. They pushed the fence. They pushed the officers. They started it, and we got enough evidence to prove this. How could they be supporting anybody that put that man in that door like that? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to get emotional, but that's the one that
No,
bothers me so much. That poor man, what he had to go through. Can you imagine? And then a bat, Jake Lane, oh my God, lying about not getting due process. All these lies that's been going on for so long. I just had to keep speaking out so that the officers could stop this craziness. They should be getting honored and loved and supported, for what they went through. I'm sorry, I'm getting a little emotional here, but
no, I want to know what's going through your mind when you see that, because I saw your whole spirit change when that video came up.
it's disgusting. We do not support people that are violent. We do not perpetrate at all. And that's what I was taught with Republicans. They were for law and order. Well, where's your law and order with this? Tell me, can you really agree that this was a peaceful protest? Give me a break. But there is so much denial. It's difficult when you get honest with yourself. It really is not easy to do introspection. It's so much easier to just blame them. It's not my fault because it takes away from looking at yourself. And I get that. However, I ended up, once I really realized I was wrong, I have peace of mind now. I feel better about myself. I knew I was lying to myself, and I could find the people to help me keep lying. And this is what they've done. They just found more people to come around them and say, "Oh, yeah, the officers started it. They opened the doors. We didn't get due process," which we know is an outright lie.
You okay?
Yeah, I'm sorry.
No, don't apologize. It shows that you're a human being and that I sometimes I wonder about the humanity, not wonder, because I know that, when I hear the folks who are so strident and they're and continuing to propagate a lie, right, about what happened on that day, I don't see much humanity there. And it's good to see that you do have humanity, and there appears to be honest, you know, I don't know,
How can
assess.
they harm those officers and not have any feeling? I don't get it. I'll know, I guess I'm glad I don't get it. I wouldn't want to wake up in their head in the morning. I
So
would
tell
get
me,
so guilty.
so tell me about that day or the week. So when did you arrive in Washington?
About 10:30 in the morning. Well, I was there the night before, and I couldn't, there was a big crowd. I wanted to hear the speakers. I think there was Alex Jones and a whole bunch of other people. And so when it ended, I got there when it was ending, and, excuse me. I followed them down to, I think it was Plaza somewhere. They're walking down the street because they had heard that the Black Lives Matter or Antifa was there. And I was a part of it, all screaming, yeah, let's go get them, you know. Ashamed of that. God. But when they got there, their officers were protecting them. And all they wanted to do was get close to them, to punish them, to beat them up, whatever they were gonna do. Let's get the Antifa, you know. I can't hear you.
Don, you're muted.
I don't know what happened. I hit the mute button
Oh,
by
there
accident.
you.
What were they saying? What kind of language were they using? I want to get to Antifa. I'm sure that's not exactly everything that they were saying.
But just mainly F Antifa. That's about all, really. It's not like I was standing next to people they're not having conversations. They're screaming, they're yelling. You know what I mean? I'd
Were they
have to
saying-
look back. I have video on it that I took. Just screaming, you're not going to take our country. Constantly, over and over, the F word, of course. That's all you hear, really. You know,
What was it? What did they mean when they say you're not going to take our country?
yeah, I know, because they have tried to convince everybody that the Democrats want to turn this into a communist country. I'm laughing now because they are. We got proof that they want to. It's Project 2025. So we know there is no deep state with the Democrats. And the DOJ is not weaponized against anybody, but Trump did a good job with his programming and his lying and all the flying monkeys that he had around him sharing the same lies. Because we know, I don't know exactly how this happened, but he went to Pence trying to get Pence to back him, and Pence was going to have nothing to do with this. But he still goes out there and has everybody believing that Pence is still with him. I would be mad if I was Pence. This is what he was doing. Even people around him was telling him the election wasn't stolen. But he's going to go out there and keep it up because it's for him. It had nothing to do with anybody around him. Everything he did and pushed out there had to do with his agenda, not the American agenda. No, it's about Trump. You know, that's all it's about.
If you're just streaming in to us, clicking on to this, you're watching Pamela Hemphill. She is the ex-MAGA granny. She ended up inside of the Capitol going as being part of the insurrection, getting arrested and prosecuted, pleading guilty. And then here it is all these years later when Donald Trump pardoned all those folks, commuted some of them. She turned down his pardon, saying she didn't think that it was warranted or didn't deserve it because she said that she was guilty, and she was guilty for a reason. And it was really a slap in the face, an insult to the officers who were injured, and of course, one officer who died there. So if you're tuning in, make sure you hit the thumbs up, make sure you like and subscribe because it affects the algorithm and more people can get to hear Pam's story. Pam is saying she was in a cult. She believed the MAGA movement is a cult. She believed that there's a strong racist elements in the MAGA movement, bigoted elements that she now denounces, and she's ashamed of. And she's telling her story, and now she's saying she's getting threats from the MAGA side. Now, are you concerned about threats or your life or anything like that? Your safety?
My therapist always said, he gave me a book, How to Become Afraid. That's a little bit of my problem. I'm cautious. I'm not paranoid. I don't like bullies. I'm doing the right thing. I'm sharing the right thing. I'm sharing facts. I'm not sharing my opinion. I'm sharing my experience. And so if they want to come after me and bully me or threaten me, I could care less. I really don't care. What can you do to me? I'm 71. You want to kill me? I've lived my life. So no, especially now with the civil rights. Oh I wanted to ask you about that. That Trump did? Oh no. Oh my God, I just can't imagine.
You're talking about getting rid of the diversity, equity, and inclusion?
Yeah, turning the clock back on civil rights.
Yeah, 1964, LBJ.
support the ACLU, organizations like that right now. Push back,
Yeah.
stand up and push back on this stuff.
If you're part of the VA, the Veterans Administration, if you fought in a foreign war, all kinds of things that folks don't realize what diversity, equity, and inclusion does. It's not just for Black people or Latinos or women. It's for white people as well. And the biggest beneficiary of diversity, equity, and inclusion are white women, because there were some very talented and deserving white women who weren't getting jobs, right? Couldn't vote and all of that stuff. And so it's not just about Black people. And they like you to believe that it's some sort of, these people are getting advantages in society that are unwarranted. Well, if this was a merit-based society, I mean, quite honestly, Pam, there'd be a lot of white men who would not be in their position, especially Donald Trump.
Exactly.
That's it. All your biz, exactly. Let's go back. Let's go, and we'll talk more about other things. But I want to go back to the Capitol. So you got there the day you said you wanted to watch Alex Jones. Was that the day of or the day before? Did you get there the day of?
That was that night.
The night before. Yeah. Okay. So that was the night before, and then you show up. You were there at the beginning of Donald Trump's speech.
I got there about 10:30. It was too late. I had surgery. I had stitches. I knew that if I tried to get in that big crowd, somebody could injure me by accident. So I thought, now what? And plus the speech was ending, and I started walking around asking people, is there a list? Is there something else going on today? I was so disappointed I got there too late. And they said, yeah, he's going to the Capitol. And I thought, why is he going to the Capitol? He's just having a speech, but it doesn't matter. I want to get there before everybody else. So this time I'm going to be up front so I can videotape everything. And I got to the Capitol, I didn't know where to go. And I turned around and a whole bunch of men were coming towards me. And I thought, this must be the Proud Boys. We'll see. And so I went up to him. I have this on video. And I said, are you the Proud Boys? He says, yeah, we're the Proud Boys. I said, oh, are we going inside? Oh my God. Well, legally, right? It was going to be legal that they're going to go in because they're there to protect Trump. Because stand back, that he said. And but later, as we're walking and we're almost to the other, I'm on the other side of the Capitol. I talked to one of their camera ladies, and I said, "Nobody's going to be with Trump, be inside the Capitol with Trump." He said, "I think a few have some plans." So I tried getting that to their lawyer, but they dropped me as a witness.
Oh, well, really? Let's. I want to. As you're talking, I want to this. So when this is all going on that we are looking at, where are you, Pam?
Oh, see, I'm not on this side. I'm on the other side that I kept screaming that the media needs to put out there because my side shows that the Capitol Police is proof did not start this thing at all. But no, I wasn't on that side.
Well, as this was going on, on both sides of the Capitol, where were you? Were you trying to push your way in? And explain your role in all of this. What were you doing?
Well, what had happened when I got up there, I was standing next to William Dunphy, and he was talking to another officer. And I turned to him, I said, what's going on? And he said, we're negotiating. It looks like they're going to move away the barrier and let us on the steps. So you know how when you're at a football game or a concert, you're going to be allowed in, but people are pushing too fast. So because I had taken half a pain pill, because my stitches, I was having a lot of pain. When the officer pulled me over, when they're pushing to get in, I thought they were letting us in, and the officers are letting me be first. I go walking around saying, come on in, it's your house. Oh my God, that's what got me in trouble. And I walked over to a female officer and I said, what's going on? Why aren't they coming in? And she said, they're not letting them in, miss. You go back in there. I thought, oh my God, oh my God. I've never forgot that moment. Like, oh God, thank God nobody was listening to me to come in. So they put me back in the same spot. I mean, I don't know how long, but it wasn't very long. They started pushing again. Same officer pulled me over and I got panicky. It feels like a buffalo is coming behind you. Like you've got to run and get out of the way because I have stitches. So I ran to the captain and I told the captain, he said, go to the steps. I'll tell them that you're going to to put you behind them. When I got there, they pushed me down, they stepped on my head, they pulled out my shoulder, cut my knee, broke my glasses. I was not breathing. 2 officers helped me up and put me behind them. One officer kept saying, "You need to leave, you need to leave," but I couldn't breathe. I mean, I could have left if I wanted to. I just was not breathing. And so I stayed there for 20 minutes, and see, that's the part that I have to own up to. I could have left, but no, Pam has to stay there and videotape. And it doesn't come to you that you're breaking the law, though. It just, you know how you say, no, I don't know if I should do this. It's again, there's too much
Mhm.
going on. It's not an excuse at all. It's just, I'm explaining. And I went to the captain up after they pushed again and got to the door, I saw them pepper spraying officers and pounding on the door with flagpoles. And I said, "Call the National Guard." He says, "I can't get a hold of anybody right now." And I wanted to help put water in the officer's eyes. And he said I couldn't because I'm a citizen. And then I saw people coming in and out. And I thought, oh, they've changed their mind. They're letting people come in now. Well, now I know on the other side, they were bringing them around and letting them out in. And the other ones were pushing themselves in. Now, like the prosecutor said to me, look, there's a doorbell going off real loud. There's broken glass. Why would you think they're going to let them in? I don't know. That's a good
Mhm.
question. But I got up close enough because there are 2 officers at the door, and I have it on video, to see on camera, ask them, are we allowed to come in? And then I had it videotaped that we have permission, but they shoved me. So I got in there, I set on my camera, I got shoved in, I sat down, they came around, I don't know what they call them, but it was the police officers, riot officers, pushing them out. And I ran behind the officers and got on the other side because I thought, I ain't getting in that crowd. They already tried to kill me. And then Joe, that was his first name, I don't know his last name, came over and said, "Are you okay?" And I said, "No, I can't get back in that crowd. Please help me get out." And he did. He helped me get out of the Capitol. But then again, I go walking back to the front and there's Jacob Chansley. So I went up there and videotaped him. And then we got to the door and I stood there with my arms out and I said, "You'd think I was a Marine with an AR." I said, "You're not coming back through this door." I was trying to protect. And that's when Trump's message came over.
Yeah. Now I want you mentioned Jacob Chansley. And Jacob Chansley, I think Nikki, if you have to cue it into his part. But Jacob Chansley did an interview. He also put out a tweet saying, he was happy that he had been pardoned and he was going to go out and buy a bunch of guns or something, and thanking Donald Trump for it. And then he did an interview with, I think it was it's either Sky or BBC. And I'm going to BBC. Let's play part of it. Here it is.
He served 41 months in jail and was released early. I asked him about that day.
If you mean like the law that I broke, I entered the building illegally. If you mean like stopping people from stealing, volunteering to help the police, saying a prayer inside the Senate, singing my shamanic song inside the Senate, stopping people from breaking in once outside the building, in literally like facing an angry mob all by myself, telling everybody they're not going to break in, that also happened that day. It really all depends on what you mean by by your question.
Well, how you remember it?
Well, I remember it being a lot different than the mockingbirds in the media have spun it, that's for sure. The chaos and the violence that took place outside the building that day was largely provoked, as far as I remember, by tear gas, concussion grenades, and rubber bullets being shot into a peaceful crowd. It was after all that all hell broke loose.
Is that
so
right,
that usually
Pam?
gets forgotten.
Please.
No,
Is that right, Pam?
no. Which part specifically?
Where he said that it was this all started in large part because of the police officers.
No, they'd given him a warning. We would need an actual police officer to give you this is the information I have received. But no, they've given him a warning. And think about this. If they're throwing smoke bombs at you, isn't that a message to get away? I mean, it's saying, hey, get out of here. And they have to do it anyway. They're instructed how to do it. I'm not an officer. I don't know what their rules are.
Well, that's what I said. If your defense is that they were ushering you in, I usually don't get ushered into people's homes or welcomed into homes or places of business with people throwing, smoke
Right.
bombs at me.
And plus, um, Tucker Carlson, when I read the court records, he didn't tell you that the officers are telling, asking him to leave. That's what
Yeah.
they want, but they don't know what weapon he may have on him and who's around him. So there's a lot of things that are missing in his court records that people have not read or know about.
What about, because the facts show otherwise, but the narrative has been that there were no weapons, there were no firearms. That's not what the police records show that there were. A crutch, I saw someone hitting someone with a crutch. Crutches can be a firearm. A flagpole can be a weapon. Excuse me. Bear spray can be a weapon. Tear gas is a weapon. The barricades are weapons. What do you think of this thing? There are no weapons and there are no firearms.
I'm not surprised they would try to come up with that. Everything sounds so ridiculous when it's right in front of you. Yes, the court records, I read 120 guns were found according to sedition hunters, and more. Give me a break. We heard a gun go off. Yeah, it's just part of them trying to gaslight you, and they're delusional. They're delusional. I mean, the court records don't lie.
Yeah. Let's listen. I'm going to listen a little bit more of Jacob Chansley, and then we'll talk about something else. Let's go a little bit more.
I think that the whole thing has just been mischaracterized in so many ways that myself included. I mean, people think I'm an insurrectionist or a Republican. I'm a libertarian. There's so much distortion because of the media. One of the things I like to say is you don't realize how distorted the media lens actually is until you see your own reflection in it.
Well, now is your chance to be absolutely clear about this. Are you saying you did not go into that building to try to stop the certification of the accurate 2020 US presidential election result?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I did not go into the building for that reason. And the fact that you still think that I did just shows how distorted the media lens actually is.
On that point,
because that's
Jake,
never my
Jake,
intention.
Jake.
That's never been my intention.
I'm just literally looking at what you pleaded guilty to. That's what I'm going from. You pleaded guilty to unlawfully obstructing an official proceeding, i.e.
And
the
didn't the
certification
Supreme
of that.
Court say that? But didn't the Supreme Court just say that that is not a practical application of the law whatsoever, and that the government was bending the law to gain convictions out of people?
No.
Give us your reaction to being pardoned for that day by President Trump.
It feels just like it should.
Go on.
Well, I think that pretty much says it all.
Describe your emotions when you heard.
I think I got the news from my lawyer when I was at the gym, and I walked outside and I screamed freedom at the top of my lungs and then gave a good Native American war cry.
And did you expect him to follow through on what he has promised on a number of occasions through the campaign trail?
I expect Donald Trump to be a man of his word like he has been for decades. And that is a track record that we don't have with pretty much any politician in D.C. for the most part. Very few have that kind of a record of saying the same things and doing the same things, which are pro-American, for over 30 years.
You wrote on X after you'd heard the news, "Thank you, President Trump. I'm going to buy some mother effing guns." Because presumably now your record has been wiped clean, you are allowed to buy guns again. Is that what you're going to do? Have you gone out and bought them already?
Oh, yeah. Well, I want you to think about something. The mockingbirds in the media and the government demonized me. They made me social pariah. They attached things like QAnon, conspiracy theorist, white supremacist, insurrectionist, racist, homophobe, terrorist. They attached all those labels to my image. And then they imprisoned me for 27 months, 10 and a half in solitary confinement. And then they released me to the public as social pariah without the ability to own a firearm. So I can never really actually bring in a gun to a gunfight. I always have to bring a knife to a gunfight. And you do realize how wrong that is, right?
Jake, you pleaded guilty.
I pleaded guilty. So is this how we do things in England? I say, yes, yes. You can't see, the forest for the trees, my dear. Hmm?
Why did you plead guilty then?
Have you ever been in solitary confinement before?
Tell me why you pled guilty.
I'm asking you the question, dear. Have you ever been in solitary confinement? The answer is no. Have you ever had the media and the government simultaneously
All right, thank you,
mischaracterize?
Nikki, for that. There's a lot of blame going around except for himself. A lot of media, it's the media's fault, it's the government's fault, it's the deep state or whatever he's saying. What do you think when you see that?
Exactly what you said. Well, he's difficult for me to listen to. So delusional. There's psychopaths and sociopaths. I would say he's a sociopath. It's important to keep in mind, there's a book called Inside the Criminal Mind by Santon Samanow. And he says that's one of their tactics. They're constantly finding somebody to blame. And they like putting out stuff like spiritual stuff or Bible quotes to make you think they're good people. It's not me. I'm a good person. I had good intentions. I didn't really do anything wrong. They opened the doors. You heard him.
Yeah.
But we know you're being delusional and you're not being honest with yourself. And you're trying to fool people that you can't fool. We got your number. We already know the facts.
Pam, what's next for you? First of all, wait, before I ask you that, what was your sentence again?
60 days in prison, which I already completed that, $500 fine and 3 years probation, which I have about 8 months left, I think.
Yeah. 8 months left of probation, and you're going to do all of it.
Yeah.
And you don't want this wiped from your record.
No. It's gonna be with me the rest of my life that I was ever there that day. I was a part of that type of history. It disgusts me. It's not me. I've been sober 45 years trying to clean up my life and keep my life good. And here I end up going to January 6th and breaking the law. So that's why, I got right with God. I'm getting right with myself and trying to get right with the world, letting them know that we got to learn to forgive ourselves. That's the hardest part right now. You could all forgive me, but I'm still hard on myself. The thought that I was there and what they did to those officers it's hard to put words in. That I was there with that.
Yeah. Have you ever spoken to Michael Fanone, one of the officers? He's a friend of mine.
No, but I bought his book, and I cried. I'll tell you what. If you don't cry after reading his book. No, the smear campaign got a hold of a few people, and they don't want nothing to do with me. Telling them lies about me. But that's my dream. There's two things. I want to take my letter to Congress and read to Congress my letter about January 6th. And the next one is to meet at least one of the Capitol Police officers and give them a hug and say, I'm so sorry that I was there that day. You are the heroes. And I don't want to forget something. The least the country could do for these Capitol Police officers, the least is get that plaque up there. They already approved it. And how dare them? Do I need to get a hammer and a nail and go down there myself? You know what I mean?
I don't think you want to do that, Pam.
No, I'm just saying, we got to get people out there to get that plaque up there.
Yeah.
It's the least we could do for them.
The MAGA folks would say, well, what about Ashley Babbitt? She died. And
unfortunately, nobody likes that. However, she wasn't a victim. She made a choice that day. She climbed through that window. She tried to get upstairs and go through the other window. Nobody forced her. I'm sorry, but it's just a fact. She got warned. Somebody said there's a gun. No, she was a volunteer, and I'm sorry that her life had to go as a result of this. It's always heartbreaking, but she was an insurrectionist too.
what do you say to Donald Trump?
No, I don't want to say anything to him. He ain't going to hear you anyway. But I'll say, you know, you knew the election was not stolen. And I went and had to spend 60 days in prison and so many others because of your lying. For what? How much money and power do you need? It's not going to fix you. We know, and I know personally, I have buried people that are millionaires that overdose on drugs and alcohol or kill themselves. So the outside can never fix your inside. I hope you get it in your heart one day, to be honest. Just quit. Leave the office. Make your amends. That's what I would say. Get out of there. You don't belong there. You're not a president. You're trying to be a king. You're a dictator. I'm sorry.
Pam,
I guess I'm under.
no. I like your honesty. So Pam, I'm gonna, because folks are in there, you have a hard time forgiving yourself. You said you're hard on yourself. But when I do these types of interviews, people aren't always as kind as they are in the chat to you. And so I'm just gonna read some of them. I hope you're okay with that, right?
Go ahead.
Monique Laurie says, this woman is what accountability looks like. And I like her honesty and doing right. Well done, Pam. Samantha's Universe says, keep going. Caleb says, truth. Jameson Gann says, sadly true, what you were saying. Awesome interview, says Belinda G. Pam is speaking that truth to Samantha's Universe. And so there are people in here who understand. People understand when you really have remorse. And I believe that you do, Pam. And I don't think that you should be so hard on yourself. I think you're doing the right thing. And as an example, to exemplify, I think the tremendous courage that you have amassed over the past year, understanding, wisdom, and integrity by turning down this pardon to set an example, I think it's quite amazing. It's quite remarkable. So I think you have a lot to be proud of. You should keep your head high, but I do think that you should, watch yourself. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And for those of us who've never made a mistake, then if you have never made a mistake in your life, then you tell me in the chat. And thank you for your bravery, Pam, and for speaking out. What changed your heart? What broke the fever, says Dale Shand.
Well, one of my steps in recovery is when you're wrong, properly admit it. And I don't always properly admit it because nobody wants to look at themselves and take responsibility for doing something that wasn't right. I get that. The first thing we want to do is, well, if it wasn't for him, if it wasn't for her, I wouldn't have done this. But see, I have to be honest with myself because my sobriety is more important than anything in my life. I'm a real alcoholic and I never want to go back to drinking. So I work a spiritual program, not a religious, but a spiritual program that includes spiritual principles of being honest with yourself and others and God. And it's not easy to do sometimes, but you feel better inside. You feel more freer. And you start, see, our troubles have been in my own making. There's nobody to blame. Every time I look at something that happened wrong, hey, I stayed in the relationship. I made that choice. So being honest with yourself, not anybody else, just you. How do I stop this pattern of self-abuse where I'm harming myself and others? I don't want to harm anybody. I don't want to harm myself anymore. But there's no such thing as perfection. Thank God. What did they say? Fall down 7, stand up 8. You're going. But what I've noticed with my mistakes is I'm not making them as often. They're very far in between now because I get aware of it. I stop it. I say, no, I'm not going there. I'm like, if I get a resentment, I pray for the person. I do things to not be resentful. There's a lot of work in the 12 steps, and I pray and try to give my life to God every day as much as possible. Sometimes I take it back.
Yeah. Shanshika Porterfield says, I continue to pray for your sobriety, Pam. Jermaine Joseph says, God bless you. Anime 08 says, America's grandmom who showed us accountability, humbleness, and love. KM says, Pam, thank you for your courage and your honesty. James, this one is very important. I want to make sure that I get it. Jameson Gann says, speak with people about it and come to terms with other like-minded people. And there was something else that Jameson saying, is we all learn from Pam, time for self-reflection to build America great for the first time since Samantha's universe. You know what I want to ask you, and I think it's interesting that you were in AA, right? And that teaches you to go places, especially within yourself, and to take accountability. And without that, I don't think that you would have gotten here. And so I think that for those who are in a cult, I think that the process that you went through helped to deprogram you from this cult-like behavior. And not everyone has access to that because they don't have to go through the type of program that you have to go through with AA.
However, don't they talk about Jesus? Don't they say that God brought Trump? Okay, they're saying they're practicing the Bible and they're putting out Bible verses that don't even match what they're putting it out for. Didn't he say when Peter took off his ear, don't be violent, you know, and were they violent that day? Just think if MAGA had gone on their knees with their Bible, that Trump's Bible, that he didn't even put his hand on, what would have been the world looked at everybody that day? You didn't do that. You didn't bring God into the picture and quit bringing God into the picture. You made a decision. You stayed. You harmed those officers. You made your own choice, and God had nothing to do with that. You quit blaming God and saying, well, I was doing God's will and I'm a patriot. No, sorry. No, you're not. I totally disagree with you. And I follow a path with God as much as I can. And I think he'd be laughing at me. Well, Pam, you still think you're a victim, huh? He'd laugh at me. But stop it. Stop bringing, you got to stop and take responsibility for your own actions without blaming somebody around you. See if you could do that. Then you've grown up. Then you've grown up.
Pam, you're a remarkable woman. Thank you so much. And if you need